Hello, Savannah. Hello, 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 and welcome to another edition of Candidly Kesha. It has been a long week, a long month, and
Yes, it
it's
is.
almost September. Soon we'll say it's been a long year. Listen, I have a very special guest with us tonight. I'm not going to hold you or her long. We're going to jump right into things tonight and discuss this memorandum of understanding between the United States Attorney's Office and the city of Savannah. This was essentially an engagement that was entered into with a vote on council, a 5-3 vote on council to hire for the city of Savannah to hire a U.S. attorney. So several questions were raised. We had long discussions. Unfortunately, much of what has been reported and the manner of which it was reported did not essentially capture the essence of what we discussed on council. So what I want to do is just play for you some of the introduction and commentary that led to the ultimate passage of this item. And I asked our esteemed district attorney of the Eastern Judicial Circuit, Ms. Shalana Cook Jones, to stop by tonight to weigh in, but also to let us know how this will essentially impact her office and ultimately crime in our community. So without further ado, I also want to talk to you all about two more things after DA Cook Jones leaves, and that's our ARPA funds. You may have some discussion about ARPA too, because that's
Yes,
impacted
we
so
do.
many municipalities. And we also want to talk about the street naming item that was on the agenda for Senator Warnock. So stay with us. I want you all to like, and share, and let folks know that the district attorney is in the house tonight. Um,
Yes.
so I'm going to just play this introduction. And if you can hear it, let me know. But if you can't hear it, just wave and we'll just paraphrase some of this. So let's see what we can do. I want to say that my concern is okay,
and have some meaningful.
oh, that's not it.
Be able to deal with that. Final comment, Ms. Gibson Carter.
I have a question, Mr. Bell. Okay, so let's go back to the agreement here. I want to say that my concern is less that I didn't receive any acknowledgement from you, Mr. City Manager, or from this administration. I'm accustomed to that. But my concern more is what I do all the time, and that is to make sure that our public, more than us as sitting servants of the city of Savannah, it is our position to be able to educate the public on what our decisions are and what the implications of those decisions will be. With that said, we are expending a resource of the city of Savannah for a particular item that affects our city, where the criminal justice system is concerned, where crime is concerned. If we are looking at tackling these issues from a proactive perspective, I could think of a dozen different ways that we can utilize that money to be proactive as opposed to reactive. You see, this resolution essentially calls us to be reactionary. We have a district attorney's office here in Chatham County that will do this work. And the efforts of that office are going quite well. I'm glad you pointed out the backlog, Alderman Palumbo, because we know that our district attorney, Shalana Cook Jones, inherited a major backlog under the leadership of Meg Heap. And we also know that the pandemic exacerbated that backlog. As an advocate for rape victims, I would have much rather have seen those resources go to support efforts to strengthen the depth of our special victims unit so that we can identify, arrest, and prosecute rapists faster. You should understand that rapists are not recidivists. Rapists are recidivists, rather, and rapists are not specialists. They commit a myriad of crime. And so when we are utilizing the criminal justice system with regard to our investigative practices, we then recognize that we increase our opportunities to not only capture rapists, but when that data is put into the CODIS system, when that DNA is put into the CODIS system, we also identify people who have committed gun violence, homicide, who have broken into people's homes, who have stolen cars. We are taking a knee-jerk reaction, or a knee-jerk approach, I should say, where this item is concerned, because we cannot snow the public on this one. We have to be real with them. This is really confusing because the majority of the gun crime in our community are not federal offenses. The majority of homicide committed by citizens in this city are state charges. They're not federal offenses. And this further says that we, who supervise this U.S. attorney, which makes it actually a personnel issue, Mayor Johnson, is personnel. And executive session is where you discuss personnel matters. 1/3.
Okay, so the backstory is we had 5 days previous to council, probably 4 days previous to council, we were presented with this memorandum of understanding as an extra tool in the toolbox, to quote the city manager, to combat crime in our community. We know the most pressing issues facing the community where crime is concerned right now is the rising rate of homicide, particularly among young African-American men and boys who are victims, as well as those who are committing the crimes. And so I embrace opportunities to be proactive always, but the issue I have with this particular memorandum of understanding is the reactionary approach, but it's a reactionary approach that has not been well thought out or prioritized, particularly when we are looking at the fact that we did not have data to support an item like this to say we have an influx or increase in federal crime in Savannah. Therefore, we are going to strengthen our U.S. Attorney's Office by hiring and paying for a staff attorney to support their efforts. In my mind, I'm thinking, I think we have more misdemeanors and felonies that are swelling in our district attorney's office. So before we go to the federal level, why not focus in our own backyard? I want you to weigh in on this in terms of what this means for your office. I have a recording here where the mayor says that you were contacted in May. He states that he sent you a memo in May, and the city attorney said that he did not contact you. So let me just be quiet and let you weigh in here.
Well, there's a lot to parse through, Alderwoman. And let me start by saying this. I am first and foremost an attorney. And, as the district attorney, I can't direct the city on how to spend its money or what it wants to spend its money on. I can say that where we are today, the problems that we do have with crime in our area didn't start when I took office 18 months ago. And we are in an all hands on deck situation. And so if any governmental entity, whether that be the city or the county, has funds to utilize, then of course, it's going to take all hands on deck effort. So, but let me say this and get right to the point. The city has the legal right to hire and pay whoever it wants to. When I say that it has the legal right to do that, what I mean is that your personnel issues as member of mayor and council are completely up to you. The issue that I have with the memorandum of understanding in question is that it enlarges federal jurisdiction in what I deem as an unlawful way. Now, to be clear, a lot of what I'm going to say is legalese. When I finally did get a copy of the memorandum of understanding, I called the U.S. attorney and had a conversation with him about it, because the federal government cannot divest the state district attorney of jurisdiction to prosecute crimes. So what do I mean by that? A SALSA, it's in the MOU, it's a SAUSA, a special assistant U.S. attorney, only has the authority that's given to it by the federal government, which means that SALSA can only investigate and prosecute crimes that take place on federal lands or crimes that arise from a federal statute. So when I talk about crimes that arise from a federal statute, I'm talking about gun crimes, which is what I was told this particular MOU was about. Unfortunately, when I got it and I read it, I realized it was much broader than that. The MOU contemplated giving cases to the SALSA where all cases that originated from the Savannah Police Department, all cases of violent crime that took place in the city of Savannah, and all cases that the city of Savannah had an interest in. That is completely unlawful because all of those three categories that I just mentioned to you belong to the state to prosecute and do not belong to the federal government. And in my legal opinion, I think the MOU is useless because you don't need authority to give the federal government what it already has authority to do, which is to prosecute federal crimes. Now, still, by and large, as I said, the scope of what the SALSA can prosecute is very limited. And so I contacted the parties as soon as I saw a copy of the MOU, which was actually on the morning of the city council meeting. The matter had not been discussed with me. In fact, when I talked to the U.S. attorney about it, he hadn't even seen or reviewed a copy of the MOU.
Well, and it's my understanding that they acknowledge that as far as they were concerned, this is just a draft. And so how our council passed a memorandum of understanding in a draft form is also questionable. But go ahead.
Well, as I said, it was my understanding in my conversations on the day of the city council meeting. Again, I understand that the council meeting took place at 2 p.m. that day. I wasn't there. That it would not be signed, that at least it was my understanding. I'm conveying to you what my understanding of my conversation with the U.S. attorney was. He can certainly speak for himself. Was that particularly Section 3 that governs duties, responsibilities of the SALSA, which is located on page 2 of that document, was really overbroad and could not move forward in that way. So after my conversation with him, my understanding was that that he was going to work on the language of that before it was represented or presented to mayor and council for a vote. I will say that I did contact the mayor once, the mayor's office, law office, once the MOU came to my attention to notify them of what I thought the issues were. And I did get a call back from the mayor's office after the fact saying that it's handled. Now, how the city manages its business is not my affairs. I only deal in prosecuting crime. But I thought that it's handled meant that it was going to be further worked upon, not that it would be presented to mayor and council for an actual vote. So I was very surprised to find after the fact that the MOU was voted upon and that it was passed in the form that I saw. And again, it's not, I don't want to speak out of turn, and I'm not criticizing anybody in any way. It would seem premature to put the cart before the horse to ask mayor and council to sign an agreement that wasn't executed, unless, of course, the finalized agreement was going to be presented to mayor and council at a later time. Of course, I don't know that because I don't govern the city's business. But what I will say is, I did have a conversation with the mayor on the day of his press conference. And in that press conference, he did notify me that the Clark family, whose son was slain on Savannah State's campus, did raise some concerns at that press conference, his regular Tuesday press conference. He did not mention to me during that call that what prompted that conversation was this issue of this new federal prosecutor's position. Again, he's under no obligation to notify me of what the city does. He does not need my permission, as indicated by the fact that I wasn't included in the agreement and wasn't consulted about it. But I don't want the public to be confused about the scope of this MOU, and I don't want them to be confused in any way by thinking that the federal government is going to come in and prosecute state crimes. In fact, that's absolutely not the case. Both, and I say that as a matter of law, and I say that as a reflection of my conversation with the U.S. Attorney about the matter.
Right. And I want to ask you a question. You did a great job in laying the foundation for what constitutes federal jurisdiction.
Sure.
In your experience and in your day-to-day work, as I stated, I found problematic that we did not have any data or statistics to support this particular item as a tool in the toolbox. In your experience every day, crime in Savannah, what percentage of crime in Savannah represent state charges versus federal charges? Do you think would you say it's 90-10? Is it 80-20? Is it 70-30? Just a rough estimate.
That's a very good question, Alderwoman, and that's hard for me to answer because I'm not in the U.S. Attorney's office, so I do not know what their caseload looks like. I will say in my conversation with U.S. Attorney Estes that his representation to me was that this came about as a result of a conversation about the mayor asking about how we can crack down on federal gun crimes, and I understand that the way that he represented that conversation to me was that he has 14 U.S. attorneys and he has 38 counties to cover.
Right.
That is a large stretch of land. You got to remember that the Southern District of Georgia is very vast and includes 38 counties. So if you think that we're having difficulty prosecuting crime that occurs just in Chatham County, even his federal prosecutors are spread thin. So right. I think that was probably the impetus to try to direct some resources there.
And I get that wholeheartedly. And this is what I want to say so people don't have the wrong idea that I think this is wholly a bad idea. My issue is how it was prioritized and the lack of communication with our district attorney's office. In this very council meeting, the mayor stated that he sent you a memo. I would imagine that a memo, this item constitutes more than just a memo. I think you pick up the phone or have coffee, lunch, or tea, or have a face-to-face meeting. Nonetheless, you acknowledge that the mayor did not send you a memo, and the city attorney says that he did not contact your office because this didn't have to do with your business. But from where I'm sitting and the messages that I received on our alerts where crime is concerned, I would say, just from my position, the vast majority of the crime committed in this city fall under a state level purview, not federal.
Well,
and so
I would say that you're right as it relates to state jurisdiction. And I think that everybody has heard me say over and over what our backlog is and the state of crime in Chatham County. Let me say this. I wholeheartedly believe, and I have said this since I've taken office, that crime is everybody's problem. Public safety is everybody's issue. And it's going to take everybody's resources across the board to really make a dent in what we're seeing. Even though ARPA funds came along and said that it was designed to help with backlog relief and the cloud system, there has been a saying since the beginning of time that the wheels of justice turn slowly. And when I took office, that's why I said that one of my goals was to create a criminal justice system that operates efficiently, equitably, and effectively. Because the longer a case stays in the court system and lingers, that's the longer we delay justice, the longer it takes for victims to get their day in court. And cases don't get any better the more clogged our system is. It is going to take every segment and every silo of the criminal justice system to pull resources together in order to fix this problem. And so to that end, I will say this. I have made several attempts to have a one-on-one meeting with our mayor. To date, I have not gotten a one-on-one meeting with him. I know that he's very busy, as we all are very busy. And I'm hoping that one day he will make time to meet with me over lunch to talk about the issues that concern our shared constituents. As to a memo that was sent to me in May, that is not the case. I have not heard from the city manager, Mr. Melder, and the police chief, Mr. Mentor, and the mayor and I have sat down to talk specifically about shootings and officer involved shootings that have taken place in our jurisdiction. We have not talked about any MOU or any proposal about the creation of a SALSA position to treat this issue. More importantly, I would like to point out that in November of 2021, my office did send a request for help to the mayor, to the city manager, to Mr. Massey, and through Alderman Palumbo to have them consider using some of the millions of ARPA dollars that were given to the city to share some of those resources with us so that we could, hire prosecutors, hire victim witness advocates, put more manpower in the court
We
system.
never got any of that
And-
information. That was never shared with us.
Okay, well, I have a copy of that. It was provided, it was sent, it was emailed to the parties that I named. It's dated for November 21st. And the word that I got back was that it was dismissed out of hand. So to know that the city has these resources available and is in and would not assist in on the state level. The other thing I want, that I want to make clear is that when we came into office, we established the ROC, which is the District Attorney's Racketeering and Organized Crime Coalition. And that is a coalition that's made up of several law enforcement agencies, community activists, and it also has a legislative arm. We invited the mayor to participate in that. I do believe that Chief Mentor has attended one or two of our sessions, but I know that the city was more vested in starting its own violent crime task force. So let me say this. I am in no way do I intend for this to be a aha gotcha moment. I really believe, I say this because for two reasons. The first is oftentimes there are a lot of things that circle around in the media and people want their ears tickled, but they don't want to listen to the issues. And what I found is that larger circuits, often newspapers, they want to get stuck on rubrics and backlogs when we are fighting real issues in our court system. Before people say, yes, we do have problems, but I want our Chatham County citizens to know that since April of 2021, as soon as these courts open, my prosecutors have been trying murders, sexual assaults, aggravated assaults, child molestations. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, our office won 3 separate cases: a child molestation, an aggravated assault, and a murder. We sent that out for a press release, and for whatever reason, the press outlets didn't want to pick that up. But they do want to talk about things being soft on crime. And so what I want our citizens to know is don't be fooled. My greatest desire is to make sure that I can get out into the communities and educate people about the issues and what's going on. Listen, I don't lay blame on anyone. We've got to do a better job educating our communities and educating our public about the full scope of the issues. And the only way for them to be able to make real informed choices is for them to hear from all parties and stakeholders at the table. So I would just ask, while none of us, we're all sovereign, we're state elected officials or city elected officials, and none of us are required to talk to any of us. But my hope would be that if we want a better tomorrow for our citizens, we would invest more time in being collaborative and having collective conversations that will increase public safety for everybody.
Right. Well said. Well said. And what we want to recognize, my position is to do just that. And that's why I asked you to come on tonight. And I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to share, because when narratives are formed in one medium and not shared in others, people get confused. And when we have information like this going out through our airways, and you attach victims and families to this issue, and you mentioned the Clarks, and I just want to say, as always, my heart goes out to the families who have lost loved ones to senseless gun violence. And I had a conversation with the Clarks who lost their son on the campus of Savannah State University. And they're grasping and pulling and drawing for answers. And I'm hoping that we are coming closer to helping them get those answers. But to have that family stand there in a press conference as we are presenting this memorandum of understanding with the United States Attorney's Office, as if this office that is identified or defined within this document could help that family, I think was disingenuous
Well, let
and
me.
and just not very compassionate. We cannot politicize and sensationalize people's pain.
Right.
And what I want the public to know, that when it comes to tackling crime, when it comes to tackling gun violence, we must first tackle poverty.
Yeah.
We must first do something about the structural issues that feed and lead to crime. And if we are not doing this work in tandem, we are doing a disservice, and we're creating this position. The price tag on this item is $100,000. Um, there's so much that is not fully identified
Mhm.
here in terms of what the public's money is being spent on and what the public is being led to believe.
Right. Let me jump in, Alderwoman, and say this. I think that what's going on here is not, perhaps it's not unique to Savannah. I am willing to extend that and say that the people of this of our country are dying because there are folks who are more invested in politicizing issues than they are in dealing with the root of the issue. And every time I have a victim that comes to that courthouse, I treat them with the same level of dignity and respect. My heart goes out to the Clarks, also the Christopher Starks family, and so many others who have slain children and the murders have gone unsolved. And I spoke to the Clark family, Mr. Frazier and Miss Medea Clark, soon after I took office, and I sat across from them. I met with her once, and then I met with her and her husband. I've talked to them several times by phone. They've contacted their victim witness advocate to see what can be done. And I received a call last week that they wanted to speak with me. I reached out, I called them back, and just as late as Friday, they were outside the courthouse, picketing and holding signs. And I was on my way to another meeting, but I crossed the street to meet with them. Why? Because when I see them, I don't see politics. When I don't see them, I don't see Republicans or Democrats. I don't see black or white. I see a family that lost their son and they want answers. They are grieving. And so I think that as politicians, we also have to have a heart of compassion. But born from that heart of compassion is also being honest and transparent and telling them the truth. And that is this: there is no evidence in my office that would have supported a charge for murder against the defendant. And so, contrary to popular belief, the defendant in that case pled guilty to 10-year charge and with 5 years to serve. So for them to say that, or anyone to say that nothing was done or that this family was overlooked, people have to realize that convictions are based on evidence. And the truth of the matter is that there were witnesses who were there, who could have come forward. I believe that there are people in this community who know what happened to Khalil Clark and the others like him who were slain and whose murders go unsolved. And that is why I opened a cold case unit, so that if ballistics come out later that would identify a shooter, or if a witness comes forward and gives me additional evidence or reason to open up an investigation. But let's be clear, I am a prosecutor. If further investigation needs to be done by Savannah State Police, by Savannah Police, by the GBI, I have told the Clarks, and I will say this on public record, I will loan one of my investigators. If we can get all of those entities to the table, then we can stop pointing the finger at each other and do the investigative work that really needs to be done to reopen their case if there's legitimate evidence out there.
And I spoke to them, and he did tell me that you offered
that.
an open door to say, get us all in one room. And he has been trying to reach out to the mayor to get our police chief or our police department, to get Savannah State, to get everybody in the room to give this family the answers. And if there is evidence, whether it's lost, hidden, or never talked about, that needs to be discussed in the room. And that invitation is out there. I want Savannah State to know. I want the mayor's office to know. I want GBI to know that this family has asked for a meeting with everyone. And the DA, Shalana Cook Jones, has agreed to meet with you all. Yes. And I think they are at least deserving of that.
Yes. So Krista Marco from the GBI, we are colleagues. Walter Rainey from Savannah State, Chief Gunther, Mayor Johnson, I will bring my resources to the table. And if there are any leads that need to be investigated, let's do the work instead of pointing fingers. I'm all here for it. I want our communities to be safe, because the truth is, it's Khalil Clark today, but it could be any one of our children tomorrow. And if I were them, I would want the same answers they're seeking. But I want them and the community to know, I'm here to help you. Give me the evidence that I need. And I've offered them this also. This offer is still open and still stands. If that family wants to do a press conference and ask the community members to come forward with the knowledge that they have, I will do the press conference and stand by them. Because if we want crime solved and we want shootings to stop, we have to have people to testify. It's that simple. Right. We can't point the finger at each other. If we are not helping, we're part of the problem. So let's stop it and put an end to gun violence for real.
Well, we appreciate that. And I am so grateful for this opportunity to share my platform with you. Thank you. I'm excited. I'm going to jump the people a little bit. You know how they jump the people in church? We're going to jump the people a little bit and just let them know that soon a platform of your own will be forthcoming, because you, like me, we struggle for whatever reason to get messaging out in the airways that's consistent with the real work that we're doing. Wherein individuals would rather major in the minor things and focus more on personalities and drama, and it doesn't do anything for the greater good of our community. So I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you and caution you. I want to encourage you, and I'm so excited, and I'll be looking for your platform, but I want to caution you, don't do it every week.
Well, it's
once every 2 weeks or once a month, or get somebody else to come on with you, because it is, when you're serving at the level of which we are serving and giving, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think by the grace of God, we make what we do look easy. And the curse of African-American women, the curse of women, female leaders, is that we make what we do look too easy. And when we make it look as easy as we do, we become easy targets.
Well, I do. And I want to address that because you raised it. There is a full-on attack against Black female leadership across this nation. And when the president of the United States can say on CNN that these Black female prosecutors are mentally ill and need to be put out of office, this is where you have legislation like the prosecutorial oversight bill. And so for people who label us as progressive, I understand that we are all resistant to change, but the world needs to know, don't be so convinced by the sound bites that you hear. We are out here, we are doing the work, we are doing the groundwork, and we need your support and your listening ear, because it's time for change in our nation and in our county. And so we owe it to our constituents to be on the front lines. We were called to this, and we'll complete the assignment that has been given to our hands. So thank you for having me and for giving me a platform to voice all of this when I've had so many doors closed in my face. I'll talk to anyone who will listen. So thank you for having me tonight.
Well, just remember, somewhere in Ecclesiastes, it states the race is not given to the swift or the fast, but to she who endures to the end.
Yeah.
Got this.
Well, thank you, Alderwoman. Remember Jones for Justice. That's what I'm about. You'll be able to check us out on our official Facebook page by the end of the week. So I look forward to tuning in with you and having more informational discussions like this. So you take care. Keep up the fight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All
Have
right.
a good night. Listen, we're so happy that you all have tuned in tonight. We want you to continue to like, and share. This is some important information. I don't know that we did much justice for this particular item, this particular topic. And again, I want to be clear. I embrace any opportunity there is to combat crime in our community. We need it all. But what we need more importantly is for these items not to be politicized. And further, we need to prioritize, because when we are prioritizing these efforts, we are then being better fiscal stewards over our resources. I want you to keep your eye out for just who is selected as this U.S. attorney, because I think there is some backdoor maneuvering going on. It's political season. This is the season of politics. Remember, we are amidst major campaigns coming up in our locality as well as across the state. And so we do not want your tax dollars to be used and abused as individuals are seeking office. One other item came up on our agenda that I want to share with you and just hit home just how serious I am when I say that the city of Savannah, when it comes to our city services, when it comes to your tax dollars, we should have no concern about party affiliation. We should have no concern as to whether it's male, female, black, or white. What we should be most concerned about are those things that are consistent with us living in harmony and community, as well as being able to harmony in community, as well as making certain that your tax dollars are being used for its intended purposes. And so here we had an item on the agenda to rename a street near Caton Homes after Senator Warnock. Now, let me just have you listen to this. This is right after the item was presented.
And have some meaningfulness behind these street names, we need to do so. That's all I got to say about it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderwoman Gibson Carter.
Mayor Johnson, I want to remind council that we are amidst an election season, particularly for the office that Senator Warnock is vying for. And while everyone has their preference, I caution us in using this platform to push forth anybody's political campaign, because it's just not fair to anyone. In addition, I also want to, so that's the timeliness of it.
And have some meaningful. That's all I got to say.
And while everyone has their preference, Senator Warnock is vying for. And while everyone has their preference, I caution us in using this platform to push forth anybody's political campaign, because it's just not fair to anyone. In addition, I also want to, so that's the timeliness of all of this that I have an issue with, but also the area of which we are seeking to rename or bestow this honorary designation, which quite possibly is deserving in his own right. But in all that I have experienced with citizens who live within the units of our housing authority, many that are in deplorable conditions. Recently, I shared photos of a mom's apartment that's layered with mold. We further recognize the homicide that occurred in Yamakra, where 15-year-old Desiree Gilliard, God bless her family, that individual still has not been identified or captured. Then I look at the greatest atrocity that occurred in this nation, where over 400 individuals were sold into slavery, ripped from their homes, a place we call the Weeping Time that was essentially desecrated by a majority vote on this council. I would be remiss if I didn't mention all of that, because the people who are being impacted, adversely impacted by this, they're watching and they're seeing the decisions that we're making. And then I think about the advocates of Susie King Taylor, who have been seeking to rename the square. And they've been doing that for over 2 years now, and how this item at this time gets ahead of that. Alderman Leggett, I thought we had 5 votes. I don't know why we haven't done that yet. But just on sheer principle, I cannot bring myself to support these items that just appear before us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
So 1 second. So
So again, of all that we have going on in the city of Savannah, of all that we have going on with our public housing, I don't know why anybody would want their name on anything connected with public housing. With the way the conditions are, why can't we focus on helping families get mold, rid their homes from mold? Why can't we focus on making Yamakra look halfway presentable? We're naming a street after a person who's running for public office. How much more political can we be? I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican. I don't care if it's a black man, a white woman, a black woman. It doesn't matter. This is the type of behavior that takes place under the Gold Dome. We are consistently and constantly politicizing opportunities and overlooking issues and opportunities that really matter for the citizens of Savannah. We have had advocates for the efforts to rename the square, to rename Calhoun Square. Susie King Taylor. They have checked all of the boxes. They've taken all of the necessary steps. They have been petitioning this council in excess of 18 months, almost 2 years. And somehow, y'all know it takes 5 members of council to get something on the agenda. I have no idea how this renaming of a street after Senator Warnock came about. I don't know how that became priority in Savannah, Georgia during campaign season. We have to take better responsibility as leaders. We have to exhibit better ethical standards where it comes to governing in these offices. And we have to prioritize by putting our people first. Hijacking our legislative process and making it our own and creating opportunities for our own agendas is not the order of the day. So I had another video here. I think this one was related to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Let's see.
That the language in this is very loose. Across this nation, where Black and brown people are concerned, we know that there are huge trust issues where the criminal justice department is concerned. We should not be entering into lightly an engagement that could essentially change the trajectory of people's lives who commit any crime. I am a criminal justice major. I've worked in the system for decades.
Okay, so here again, you don't see these clips on the news. They don't capture this. And if you looked at the article done by Savannah Morning News, the reporter that was in chambers the whole time, oftentimes there are reporters in chambers for 2-3 hours. And how they only come up with the sound bites that they come up with, I have no idea. How they only come up with the pictures, the photos that they come up with, I have no idea. But what I do know is that there is a consistent effort to tell you a vision, to frame a narrative that keeps you confused. Now, this meeting was probably every bit of nearly 2 hours. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask citizens to sit through. It's a lot to ask people to wade through. But guess what? I'm sorry, Savannah. This is not the time to be lazy. This is not the time to be disengaged. And this is not the time to be uninterested. What I'm saying to you, the stakes are high. The stakes are high now. There is coming a time really soon, if something doesn't change in this city in the next 2 to 4 years, I don't care what your race is, your gender, or your political affiliation. There is coming a time where people who were born here, raised here, grew up here, graduated school here, got married here, you're not going to be able to afford to live here. So a lot of what's happening is by design. There are efforts of individuals who are working overtime and double time to change the demography of Savannah. If you don't believe me, stay on the sidelines. Stay on the sidelines and watch what happens. Or you can participate in this process. I have one vote and I have one voice, where individuals have been trying to silence it from the day I decided that I was not selling out and that I meant what I said when I said I was not for sale. No, I didn't go to the fundraiser where they retired my debt. I didn't have much. Right. Y'all remember my opponent raised almost over $200,000 and I barely raised 20 because money doesn't vote. You do. But I need you to do more than vote. And I need you not to wait till the election season to vote somebody out of office. You need to make people who are in office do right now. I don't want people to continue to lose their lives. I don't want people to continue to be forced out of their homes. I don't want individuals to continue to work low wages, pay higher taxes, just so that I can prove a point to make it into office. It really and truly is not that important to me. Winning in the next election is not that important to me if I cannot do it with the assurance that we have people who are going to collectively come together, challenge the system, and challenge her now. We need you, Savannah, and we need you engaged. Whether it's posing questions in social media, writing to myself, the mayor, and other alderpersons, or coming to City Hall. Pull up the agenda previous to the meetings. Look at the items. Oftentimes, there's anywhere between 20 and 50 items on that agenda. Look at how we are spending your tax dollars. If there is an item that you have a question about, if it's something that's questionable, let us know. Go to the website, go to the clerks tab, clerk of council tab on the City of Savannah website, savannahga.gov. Browse through that agenda, go down to the end of the agenda, pull up this memorandum of understanding, and read it for yourself. You decide, is that the best use of $100,000 for one individual? And again, let's not forget, let's keep our eye on who they're going to hire and see who they are connected with or to. Whose BFF is it? Whose campaign did they work? These folks can't even be original in their missteps. Do we have another video here? These are out of sequence, I think.
With our district attorney, Shalana Cook Jones, on this.
No, ma'am. It's not for her office. It's for.
Okay, this is me asking the city attorney if he, right, that's all they have is sound bites. If he consulted with the district attorney, Shalana Cook Jones. Let's listen to this.
With our district attorney, Shalana Cook Jones, on this.
No, ma'am. It's not for her office. It's for the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Okay, so we have one of the chief law enforcement officers of Chatham County, and we did not collaborate or consult with her as we are seeking to engage into this. This is going to affect her work tremendously, quite possibly in a positive way. So I think it would have been worthwhile to just at least share it with her, to inform her.
Mr. Attorney.
Yes, ma'am. I understand your point. I don't agree.
Okay.
I don't agree, but I understand your point. It's just a different office.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I also want to acknowledge that in this agreement, it acknowledges that we would have the prerogative as to somewhat cherry picking who in what case.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to bring it to you all. I need you to come with me, though, because it gets exhausting recording this stuff and then trying to send it to the producer, because I always send it late and then get it to you. But this is not what they report on. They don't report this. They don't capture our commentary. They don't capture the fact that oftentimes it's not a majority vote half of the time. Most of the time on these major issues, it's a 6-3 vote. Myself, Alderwoman Blakely, and Lanier are generally dissenting on behalf of the people. But I digress. Pay attention, Savannah. Pay attention. We are in deep battle. Yes, it does, Ivan. It really does. And there was a question by Ms. Roberts about the districts, first district, and how does Yamacraft Village moving from first district to second district impact the voting base? It's all by design. It's all by design. Because guess what? You all know what what District 2 is. District 2 is now the entertainment district, right? District 2 is primarily our downtown corridors. And if they now are folding in Yamakra, Yamakra wasn't good enough for District 2 before, right? So I was in District 1 with the West Side. But now there are big plans for Yamakra in District 1 and District 2. So why not snatch her up there? Pay attention. Pay attention. I'm not sure how many short-term vacation rentals exist in the second district, Rebecca, but we do know that that ordinance or the lack of an ordinance initially when these short-term vacation rentals were allowed preceded rules and guidelines that would foster equity and balance so that we can maintain harmony in neighborhoods and balance that with people being able to earn a living. But right now we have far too many short-term vacation rentals that are owned by people who don't actually live in Savannah. And so that becomes problematic when you don't have folks with boots on the ground near their properties and individuals come in and cause issues in neighborhoods. And then the other side of that is we do not have equity when it comes to allowing these opportunities for other communities. So there's a lot of work to do. That's huge. A lot of work to do. That would have been a good workshop for us to have, but unfortunately, it's been decided that we will not have any workshops for the rest of the month. Yes, yes, yes. I don't think journalists have much integrity these days. They just are talking heads and they do what they're told and they can't exercise their own thoughts and their own mind. I realize they have to do what they have to do for the for their livelihood to pay their bills, but that's a miserable way to live, a life of lies and deceit, particularly when you live in a community. I think a part of the problem with our reporters and journalists is that a lot of them do not live in the city of Savannah. So they are not as impacted by a lot of what the decisions that are made here. They just report on it. I also want to say that going on right now, we were asked to submit names for a police chief search to tell the city manager or whomever who or what it is we would like in a new police chief. Previous to asking that question, I think the question should have been, do we need to engage in a national search for a police chief? And I think the vast majority of us would have probably said no. At least I know many police officers think that we should keep who we have. And while I have concerns about one of the assistant chiefs, not Mr. Adams, with regard to some extracurricular behaviors, I think the selection of the police chief and the assistants is where it would allow for our police department to heal. I don't know if many of you noticed, but since the departure, or I should say, since the transition and the arrival of the new interim police chief Gunther, since July 29th up until probably this weekend, we had no shootings when we were experiencing a shooting or two every single day. Yes, Ms. Jones, I think you're right. Everything we need is in the house. We do not need to expend another $100,000 to bring somebody in from another state who will possibly come in and in their attempt to make the department their own, people will get overlooked and passed over again, thereby contributing to the low morale, so forth and so on. And so how unfair and undignified it is to ask your sitting chiefs of police and assistant chief to tell you who and what it is they want in a chief of police. If I were them, I would just say, I want myself. Right? I want myself. I want myself. And so I want to remind you all that you elected representatives, council representatives. You did not elect the city manager. You did not elect the city attorney. But these individuals, along with the mayor, make all of the decisions. And we have no say or no control because we are in the minority. And that's why we are oftentimes unable to put forth agenda items and recommendations that would be progressive and move the needle a little faster where a lot of these issues in our community are concerned. And so while we have one voice and one vote and we don't have the media on our side, we know that we have the people on our side, and we know that we have your voice and we can depend on your vote. And so going forward, we just want you to pay closer attention and do me a favor. The next time something is reported from our administration or on the City of Savannah website, even our own staff, our media staff, they get it wrong oftentimes as well because they have to do what they're told. I get it. But I want you to pay attention to what's reported. And then I want you to actually go back to the meeting and watch that portion of it. And if you pull up the agenda, you can kind of follow along and it'll guide you as to like what part of the meeting it's in so that you don't have to watch the whole meeting. But when you watch the meeting for yourself and then you remember the news account or you remember or you read and balance that with what they put in the paper or in some of these news publications, you will find that is very different, very different. And your assessment with regard to how we serve and what we say would be very different as well. So listen, that's enough. That's enough. Did I answer everybody's question? I was trying to pay attention tonight a little bit. I want to thank y'all for following us and sticking with me. We want to encourage you to stay engaged. And tomorrow, District Attorney Shalana Cook Jones will be on Alderwoman Alicia Miller Blakely's show. She will probably go more in depth about this memorandum of understanding. So between tonight and tomorrow, read the memorandum of understanding, listen to her tomorrow, and again, get it for yourself, because we do not want them to continue to tell you a vision. Listen, unholy trio. I like that, Ivan. Yes. I would say so. I would say so also, Ms. Roberts. But you know what? That message will be better received if you were to put that in writing and send it to City Hall. Memorandum of misunderstanding. Ivan, I love you. I love you so much. I wish I had your wit. Yes, share your thoughts. Go to the City of Savannah website. Our emails are there too. You can email each and every last one of us and let us know how we feel. And listen, all y'all's property taxes are going up too. The majority on council voted for a rate, for the millage rate. Your taxes are going up again. But if you all had mobilized and showed yourself strong down there to City Hall and looked at us in the face collectively, you could have added to my vote, Alderwoman Blakely's vote, and Alderwoman Lanier's vote, and we could have reduced your taxes. Yeah, we actually had an opportunity to reduce the taxes of the citizens of Savannah. You know why I wanted to reduce them? Because we collected more tax dollars via your property taxes than we needed last year. Mm-hmm. And this year, you're being taxed at a rate that at the end of this year, we would have again collected more than what we needed. And it was all under the guise of increasing the entering the incoming salary for police officers and firefighters and giving police officers a raise. Well, let's do this math. For 2.5 years, we have been down more than 100 police officers. If you did modest calculations over a 2.5 year period, we did not pay over 100 police officers we budgeted for. So where's that money? And even if my math is off, we're talking $5 to $8 million. So you raise the taxes of citizens when you got $5 to $8 million that you didn't spend? Ask questions. Pay attention. I'll keep asking the questions for you, and I'll keep paying attention for you because that's what you sent me to City Hall to do. But when I have people telling me to shut up, and you all sit on the sidelines and just watch it as if it's entertainment, I'm not made of Teflon, y'all. But guess what? When they don't let me fight like a girl, I beat them like a man. Y'all have a good night. I love you.
like that.